They said I was just a tech girl. Now I own the company they tried to steal. When I was a child, I didn't dream of being a CEO, let alone running a multi-million-dollar company. My father, Robert Chen, started a small computer repair shop when I was barely 5. Back then, the shop was a modest space nestled in the corner of a strip mall with a simple sign that read Chen Tech Solutions. It was a place where wires tangled like jungle vines, old computers sat in stacks, and the smell of solder filled the air. It wasn't glamorous, but it was home to me. For my father, that little shop was everything. He poured his life into keeping it afloat, working late into the night while my mother handled the household. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Dad was always proud of his work, even though it barely kept our family afloat. He would say, "This isn't just a business, it's a legacy." Those words stuck with me, even when things got tough. My older sister, Emma, was different. She was always the golden child. Straight A's, scholarships, a future so bright it could blind you. While I stayed home helping Dad after school, Emma went to an elite business school. Every holiday visit was accompanied by her subtle jabs. "Sarah, you're wasting your time in that little shop. You should be out chasing bigger dreams." But I saw potential in that little shop, potential that no one else did. During my final year in college, where I was studying computer science, something clicked. I started noticing gaps in the market that no one seemed to be addressing. Small businesses struggled with managing their inventory, and I thought, what if we created software to help them? It wasn't revolutionary, but it was practical. I spent months developing a simple yet effective tool for small businesses. When I first showed it to Dad, he was skeptical. "You think people will pay for this?" he asked, his brow furrowed. But after a few local businesses bought licenses and found it useful, Dad started to believe in it too. The pride in his eyes when he said, "Maybe you're onto something, kiddo," meant the world to me. From there, things started to change. The shop evolved from a basic repair service into a small tech firm offering software solutions. I worked day and night, putting in 14-hour days, while Emma continued her climb in the corporate world. She barely paid attention to what I was doing. To her, my work was small-time, irrelevant compared to the glamorous world of finance and consulting. But I didn't care. I wasn't doing it for recognition. I was building something real, something meaningful. 5 years passed since I first developed the inventory management tool. By then, Chen Tech Solutions wasn't just a small shop anymore. It had grown into a legitimate software company with a steadily increasing client base. Our revenue hit $1 million annually, and I began hiring a small but talented team of developers to help expand our services. Despite the rapid growth, the heart of the business remained the same, a company run by family. I managed the technical side, Dad continued overseeing operations, and Mom quietly supported us in the background, always bringing food to the office late at night. Things felt stable, peaceful even, until Emma came back. It happened during a family dinner. She had flown in from New York for the occasion, as she often did, but this time something was different. I could sense it even before she opened her mouth. There was a gleam in her eyes, a look of calculated determination that sent a chill down my spine. "I've been thinking," Emma said, setting down her wine glass with a deliberate motion. "It's time I joined the family business. With my experience in corporate strategy, I can help us take it to the next level." I froze mid-bite, fork suspended in the air. She wants to join the company, after ignoring it for years? Dad's face lit up. "That's wonderful, princess. We could use your expertise." I tried to keep my expression neutral, but inside, I was seething. The company I had poured my life into, the one I built from the ground up, was suddenly open for Emma to waltz into and claim as her own. But I swallowed my objections and forced a smile. "That sounds interesting," I managed to say. Within a week, Emma had officially joined as co-CEO. Dad insisted it was a good move for the company's image. "Having someone with her credentials at the helm will attract investors," he said. And so Emma became the public face of Chen Tech Solutions, while I continued doing what I did best: building products, managing the team, and keeping the business running. At first, I tried to make things work with Emma. I wanted to be a good sister, to give her the benefit of the doubt. But it quickly became clear that we had fundamentally different visions for the company. While I focused on innovation, developing new software solutions, and strengthening our existing client relationships, Emma focused on marketing and public relations, She attended conferences, gave interviews, and accepted awards for entrepreneurship. She loved the spotlight, basking in the glory of a company she had barely contributed to. It didn't take long before tensions started to rise. Emma began excluding me from key meetings and making unilateral decisions without consulting me. She was slowly pushing me to the sidelines of my own company, and I felt powerless to stop her. Every time I tried to bring up my concerns, Dad would wave them away, saying, "You two need to work together, not against each other." The final straw came when Emma proposed rebranding the company entirely. "We need a fresh image," she said during a board meeting. "Something modern, sleek, and sophisticated. Chen Tech Solutions sounds outdated." "It's our family name," I argued. "It's part of our identity." "Exactly. And that identity is holding us back." Emma's tone was sharp, dismissive. "If we want to compete with the big players, we need to evolve." The board, which had been largely handpicked by Emma and Dad, sided with her. I felt like an outsider in the company I had built. Everything came to a head at Dad's 60th birthday party. Emma organized the entire event, renting out the grand ballroom of an upscale hotel and inviting our business partners, clients, and family friends. It was less of a celebration and more of a networking opportunity for Emma to showcase her success. I arrived early, dressed in a simple black dress, ready to help with the preparations. Emma greeted me with a critical glance. "Couldn't you have made more of an effort? Important people are coming tonight." I ignored her comment and focused on helping Mom set up. The room quickly filled with guests, and Emma worked the crowd like a seasoned politician, smiling and laughing as she charmed everyone in sight. Then came the moment that changed everything. During dinner, Emma clanked her glass and stood up to give a speech. I expected her to say something sentimental about Dad, maybe share some childhood memories. Instead, she announced a major change in the company's leadership. As we celebrate Dad's 60th birthday, she began, her voice carrying across the silent room. "I think it's time to announce some exciting changes at Chen Technologies." Chen Technologies? My heart stopped. The board has agreed that the company needs unified leadership to move forward. She continued, her eyes locking onto mine. "That's why, effective immediately, I will be taking over as sole CEO." The room erupted in murmurs. I sat frozen in my chair, unable to process what was happening. Emma wasn't just pushing me aside, she was publicly humiliating me, stripping away everything I had worked for in front of everyone we knew. Dad sat next to her, nodding along with a proud smile on his face. Mom stared at her plate, her hands trembling slightly. No one stood up for me. No one spoke out against Emma's betrayal. I felt a mix of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. But instead of causing a scene, I stood up calmly, picked up my purse, and walked over to Dad's table. I placed a small, wrapped package in front of him. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said quietly. Then I turned and walked out of the ballroom, head held high. That night, as I sat alone in my home office, surrounded by the awards and patents I had earned, I made a decision. Emma thought she had won, but she had underestimated me. She had forgotten one crucial detail. I owned 51% of the company's shares, and the core software that generated 80% of our revenue was owned by my separate company. Tomorrow would be interesting. The next morning dawned bright and clear, but inside I felt a storm brewing. After a long sleepless night, I had prepared everything I needed to reclaim what was mine. It was time to put my plan into action. I arrived at the office early, long before anyone else, and settled into my usual chair in the conference room. With a steaming cup of coffee in hand, I reviewed the documents one last time, ensuring that every detail was in place. This wasn't just about protecting what I had built, it was about making a statement. Emma had called me worthless, and today, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. At precisely 9:00 a.m., Emma strode into the building with Dad right behind her. Both of them wore matching triumphant smiles as though they had already claimed victory. "Sarah," Emma said with a smug tone, her voice laced with mock surprise, "what are you doing here? I thought after last night you'd have the dignity to stay home." I smiled, calm and collected. "Just wrapping up some loose ends, sister dear. But since you're here, we should probably talk about the company's future." "There's nothing to discuss," Dad said, his voice firm. "Emma's in charge now. The board has already approved it." "Yes, the board," I said, pulling out my tablet. "Let's talk about that." I tapped a button, and the large screen in the conference room lit up, displaying a document. You see, while Emma was busy planning parties and giving interviews, I was actually building this company. And there are a few things you both seem to have forgotten. Emma's confident expression faltered slightly. What's this supposed to be? First, I began, my tone steady. Let me remind you that I own 51% of Chen Tech Solutions shares. When we incorporated 10 years ago, Dad gave Emma and me 25% each, keeping 50% for himself. But 3 years ago, when we needed capital for expansion, Dad sold me an additional 6% of the shares. Remember that day, Dad? You were too busy attending Emma's awards ceremony to handle the negotiations yourself, so you signed the papers without reading them carefully. The color drained from both of their faces. Emma's perfectly manicured hands gripped the edge of the conference table tightly. That's impossible, she whispered. Dad would never. But he did, I interrupted, pulling up another document. And that's not all. The core software that generates 80% of our revenue isn't owned by Chen Tech Solutions. It's owned by Innovate Solutions LLC, a separate company I established years ago. The company only has a licensing agreement, which, by the way, expired. I checked my watch. About 10 minutes ago. Dad sank into a chair, realization dawning on his face. The renewal papers, the ones you asked me to sign last week? Yes, those papers. I decided not to the company you tried to steal from me. I interrupted again, my voice rising. The one you thought you could just take over because you have an MBA and Dad's approval. That company ceased to exist the moment you decided to humiliate me in front of everyone last night. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I could see employees gathering in small groups, whispering and checking their emails. Word of what was happening was spreading fast. Dad's voice, usually so authoritative, now sounded weak. What are you saying, Sarah? I'm saying you have two options, I replied, leaning forward slightly. Option 1, I walk away. I take my shares, my software, my clients, and my employees, and leave you with an empty shell of a company. You can explain to all those important people you invited last night why the company's value dropped to zero overnight. Dad paled. And option 2? Option 2, I said, folding my hands on the table, you both resign. I take full control of Chen Tech Solutions. You keep your shares as silent partners, receiving dividends but having no say in operations. Emma gets a generous severance package and glowing references for her next job somewhere far away from here. Emma's face turned an interesting shade of red. You planned this all along, didn't you? You've just been waiting for the right moment to stab us in the back. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. No, Emma. I spent 10 years trying to be a good daughter and sister while you both took me for granted. I built this company while you collected accolades for my work. I'd only planned this. I checked my watch again. About 12 hours ago, after you called me worthless in front of everyone. A tense silence filled the room, broken only by the buzz of my phone as another client termination notice came through. I smiled, turning the phone toward them. Time's running out. What's it going to be? The next hour was a blur of paperwork and hurried consultations with lawyers. By noon, it was done. Emma and Dad had signed the resignation papers, and I was officially the sole CEO of Chen Tech Solutions. I sat alone in my new office, staring out over the city skyline. The company I had built was now truly mine, but the victory felt hollow. The price I had paid was steep. My relationship with my father and sister lay in ruins, shattered by greed and betrayal. Mom came to see me that evening, her eyes red from crying. Did it have to end this way? She asked softly. They gave me no choice, I said gently but firmly. They would have taken everything I built and discarded me without a second thought. She nodded slowly, understanding but sad. What happens now? I showed her the plans I had already drawn up, expansions, new product lines, innovations I have been holding back for years. Now I build something even bigger, I said, but this time I do it without having to carry people who see me as worthless. In the days that followed, the office was abuzz with activity. Word spread quickly about the leadership change, and the initial uncertainty among employees soon gave way to renewed motivation. I called an all-hands meeting to address the team. Standing in front of them, I felt a mix of pride and determination. Many of you may be wondering what happens next. I began, my voice clear and steady. Last night marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. We'd have faced challenges, but we've also built something extraordinary together. Now we're going to take this company even further with innovation, integrity, and respect for each other's contributions. I paused, scanning the room, meeting the eyes of my employees. If you're ready to be part of this new chapter, I welcome you. Together we'll achieve even greater things. And for those who choose to leave, know that I respect your decision and wish you well. The room remained silent for a moment before a wave of applause broke out. One by one, team members approached me afterward, expressing their support. It was a reminder that while Emma and Dad had tried to undermine me, I had earned the loyalty of those who mattered most, my people. Emma left the company quietly a few days later. Despite the acrimony, I ensured she received a generous severance package as promised. Publicly, I praised her contributions during her tenure, knowing that burning bridges wouldn't serve either of us in the long run. We didn't speak directly, but before leaving, she sent me a brief email. Subject: farewell, message. I underestimated you. I thought I could take what you built and make it my own, but you proved me wrong. Good luck, Sarah. I hope someday we can find a way to rebuild what we lost. Emma. I stared at the email for a long time before closing it without replying. Perhaps in time, wounds would heal. But for now, I had to focus on moving forward. Dad, on the other hand, was harder to read. He retired shortly after the incident, retreating to the quiet life he had once dreamed of but never allowed himself to enjoy. We saw each other only during family gatherings where conversations remained polite but distant. At Mom's urging, I tried once to reach out, inviting him to lunch. He declined, citing health reasons. I didn't push further. He had made his choice and I had made mine. Despite everything, I still kept the unopened gift I had prepared for his birthday. A simple photo album chronicling the journey of our company, from the tiny repair shop to the thriving enterprise it had become. I placed it on a shelf in my office, a quiet reminder of what we had once shared, and what had been lost. Under my sole leadership, Chen Tech Solutions underwent rapid expansion. We launched several new product lines, entered international markets, and acquired smaller startups that complemented our core business. Within a year, the company's value tripled, and we gained recognition as one of the most innovative tech firms in the industry. Despite the outward success, I remained grounded. I knew how quickly things could change and how fragile success could be. Every decision I made was driven by one goal: building something that would outlast me, something truly meaningful. One day I received an unexpected email from Emma's alma mater inviting me to speak at their upcoming graduation ceremony. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the same prestigious business school that had once molded Emma into the person who thought she could run my company better than I could. The topic they proposed: hidden strengths, the power of underestimated leaders. I accepted the invitation with a quiet smile. The day of the event, I stood on stage in front of hundreds of eager graduates. I'd like to start by sharing a story, I began. It's about a young woman who was often overlooked, dismissed as unambitious and lacking vision. She didn't have an elite education or glamorous credentials, but she had something even more important: a quiet strength, a relentless work ethic, and a vision that others couldn't see. I paused, allowing my words to sink in. That woman transformed a struggling family business into a thriving enterprise, only to face betrayal from those closest to her. But instead of giving up, she fought back, reclaiming what she had built and turning adversity into an opportunity for growth. Looking around the room, I could see the impact of my story reflected in the graduates' faces. The lesson here is simple: never underestimate yourself, and never let others define your worth. True strength often lies in the quiet moments when no one is watching, in the hard work that goes unnoticed, and in the courage to rise after being knocked down. The applause was deafening. As I stepped down from the podium, I felt a sense of closure. This wasn't just about telling my story, it was about owning it. As the years passed, I found myself thinking less about the betrayal and more about what lay ahead. My focus shifted from proving others wrong to building something lasting. I poured my energy into mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing my experiences, and helping them navigate the challenges of business and leadership. Mom remained a constant presence in my life, her quiet wisdom guiding me through difficult moments. Occasionally, she'd mention Dad or Emma, hinting at reconciliation, but I never pressed the issue. Some wounds take time to heal, and some relationships may never fully recover. One evening, as I sat alone in my office, I took down the unopened gift I had kept for years. I ran my fingers over the wrapping, thinking of everything that had happened since that night. Maybe it was time to finally give it to Dad, to try one more time to bridge the gap between us. Or maybe, I thought with a bittersweet smile, it was enough to simply remember. Today, Chen Tech Solutions stands as a testament to resilience, vision, and quiet strength. We continue to innovate, expand, and thrive in an ever-changing industry. As for me, I've learned that true success isn't about wealth or recognition. It's about creating something meaningful, something that endures beyond your own efforts. Sometimes the strongest message you can send isn't about revenge. It's about rising so high that those who once doubted you have no choice but to see their own mistakes. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about building something so powerful that it outshines all the petty rivalries and jealousies that once sought to bring you down. I no longer seek revenge. I seek growth. And that, I've learned, is the most powerful kind of success.